You wanted to do your favorite Course in Miracles thing.
I will, yeah, yeah. Oh, because of the feeling is different now around too. It's interesting. Yesterday there was a really strong sense of wellness. I don't know what it was about. It was cool. And I could see that in a way, it's going to be very beneficial in some ways that this has happened. Because hopefully, maybe people will, because a lot of times you can only recognize something when it stops. Yeah. Like
Right.
if you're in a constant movement of deadlines and shit like that, you don't recognize it because you need a comparison. So you need a free sample of it stopping to realize how crazy it is. Yeah, that it's been allowed to keep starting. It's a trip. It's the same thing with the message. People, the problem from the solution. So you get relief, and then it tells you, and it doesn't tell you like someone, this is why. It's a sense feltness that gets translated by the machinery into language. Yeah, but it's a sense feltness that you get relief from something, and then the system tries to explain it. Yeah, the relief is the key. The explanation is secondary, but it explains it, and it comes to very interesting conclusions which point out big holes in the mental logic. Yeah, so you can't know in the mental programming. You can't know what's always happening. Yeah, you just it doesn't. You miss it. If it's sort of like the fish, you would say, if it had self-centeredness, because of the self-centeredness, the fish could live a life of thinking it was dry. And that possibility only arose because the wetness is completely already at all times so. Yeah? If it had a sample where it was wet and then not wet, it would recognize that it was wet. But because it's always wet, it doesn't recognize it. Yeah? And so it could actually believe if it gets weaned off of experiencing how things are, from a consciousness level of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, if that pulse gets moved to an interpretation, yeah, you're believing a lot of stuff. You don't have much evidence. It's just assumptions, a lot of assumptions. So once something is always wet, the assumption there isn't any wetness. Yeah, it's amazing. Where if you have a free sample and you feel the wetness, you realize the dryness is an imaginary, seemingly so. It can only, and this is where the great relief lies, because it's difficult for you and I to believe you can chop down a mountain, but when there is no mountain, yeah, that's a different story. Yeah, when something's taken to be real, to make that unreal is a lot of work. But when you see that it isn't real to begin with, that's the freedom. So the freedom is prior to what we would call the bondage. Yep. Or instead of no idea coming after ideas, or no thought coming after thought, it's the no thought before thought. Not the no thought as a consequence of me and you doing a lot of shit and it ends up afterthought. Yeah. But it's the no thought before thought. So you see thoughts now differently. Yeah. First of all, you don't see them as yours, which is unbelievable. I mean, 8 imaginary layers of saran wrap seemingly get removed all at once. And the funny thing, true, is when the solution can establish itself in no time at all, it informs you there mustn't have been a problem. If there was a real problem, it would take time to deconstruct it, and then move the fucking debris away. Yes? Yeah. But the sense of the solution here is that it's always been this way. It just invalidates the whole system and all the belief and all the stacked up meaning and all the assumptions. It just invalidates it. It doesn't chop it down one at a time. It just says they're all of the same fabric, which is seemingly so. It doesn't matter if they're 20, like linen. It doesn't matter if they're 500 stitch, sheets or 300 stitch. They're all sheets. Yeah, you see through it. So the idea of no thought after a life of seemingly having thoughts is another one of those fool dreams. Yeah, and that because if there's a point where there's a sense of no thought, it's a thought that's claiming it. Yeah. So the thought of being the thinker is now claiming to be I'm not thinking. But it's the only language it can talk through. Yeah. It can't, or it's just silent. Yeah. So as soon as it uses the language to explain the absence of it, there's the language. So it's a difficult it's impossible to get out of, because the trap is the trap of thinking you're in. It's not like it's an incredible trap. It's that you believe you're in, and then there's a huge desire to get out, which is the locking mechanism of the trap. The trap doesn't lock when you're when you're in, because you're not. It locks when you want to get out, because you're not. It's a trip. So that, and then it verifies, here, I really want to get out of this place. But the verification comes from trying to get out, never being in. That's why people say, sit through the fear or whatever, or walk through the fear, which is, well, if I could have, I would have. But it's without the drenching of being a self in it, it's actually a clear understanding.
Yeah.
You sit through it because it's not so. Yeah, and you are so. It's not like it's not so a little less longer than you. What you are is so. Yeah, so it can outweigh anything that's not so. Because what's not so is determined by circumstances, time, and all this, which don't have any regulation over what's so. So that's why there's that statement, the great wisdom of no escape. Well, the great wisdom of no escape, in my view, is that there's nothing to escape from. Yeah. So therefore, what's trying, and then, see, this is what happens. Then the selfing subtly claims that message, and any movement by the mental state to get out of it, you think you're in again. No, but you see you're not that. See, the message isn't to the action figure. The action figure over time will be subdued by the information, but it can't wield the information. Yeah, it's not a sword. All right, now I know I'm not going to try to get out anymore because I'm not in. No, you're in selfing in a sense. So it's not that. You just see, that reacts like that based on its own system. You see you're not that. So therefore, because this is what happens now. All right, I can't believe I'm in. Oh, I'm believing I'm in. I believe it, I'm in today. Yeah. I read a book, a paragraph. You know what I mean? I've got to cancel all fucking subscriptions. No more. Yeah, it doesn't work, does it?
I'm in again, and I'm in again, and I'm in it.
That's right. It doesn't work. Yeah, because what assumes it can be in and out. Yeah. See, it's in, about out is another bigger in. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So there's in and out, but then out is still defined by the in. Well, I've got to not freaking have any thoughts. How am I going to know there's no thoughts? I need a thought. I need a thought to tell me there's no thought. Or I need something to appear to say I've been disappeared for a few weeks. So, yeah, a friend of mine was talking about a Kabir thing. And he goes to a beautiful way of saying, I'm going to wreck it. I asked him to send it to me, but he goes to all these shopkeepers looking for it, and he goes to one shop where they're not giving him anything, yeah? And then he goes back there, and he's in the state of not wanting, and then it's everything, yes? So the not wanting, all right? So that's the new, very subtle idea. All right, I really want to not want, yeah? Because I realize something about my wanting isn't fucking working. Yeah, it seems like it's a part. I'm not saying it's the whole obscuring agent, but my wanting it seems to be a no-no now in sophisticated levels. So now I've got to not want to want it. So this is why we do the talks, is to point out the warnings, because the system can't get out of the system. It just can't. So it's going to run into that thing of self can't get out of self, but it never gets that. It just keeps on, keeps on, keeps on. And it just switches vehicles. Yeah. Once something fails, like drug addiction, you'll try spirituality. When the spirituality fails, you'll think it's going to be different when you go back to drug addiction. It's just, yeah, or, what I mean? Community, isolation, whatever. It's constantly running into failure, not realizing it's not its fault or anything, it's programming, yeah? So it rams into which is a beautiful validation. The failedness is where the succeeding is, yeah? So you run into a wall and it fails, but you just back up, like rearrange. Now you put the leather jacket down, get the fucking patchouli oil, and then you ram in again. Now I'm going to try to get out of self as this. Or lots of service. I'll lose myself doing service, yeah? And this. And so after 3 or 4 times, you've got to realize it's not the vehicles. It's the habit of the vehicle, yeah? It's not the vehicle. It's the passenger or the driver of the vehicle, yeah? It's not that you're on the wrong ride, it's you are the ride. Yeah. Yeah. We are the ride. And so we run into this thing of, I hate this freaking ride, and we want to get off the ride, but as the ride, which just extends the ride. So people, like when they go out on drugs or alcohol and they call me, and they start talking, like I had a guy today, I just cut him right off because it's pointless. They start talking to me about why, but they don't see that's part of the problem. They're thinking they've been removed and now are seeing the situation and it's going to help them not to fall in that hole again, is the fallacy of knowledge, yeah? Because knowledge claimed by what you're not, the knowledge claimed by self doesn't avail us anything, yeah? Now, knowledge of self to me is very valuable, but self-knowledge isn't. So the knowledge is there. It could be valuable, it could not be valuable. It's not based on knowledge, it's based on what precedes the knowledge. If self is after the knowledge, that's valuable. If it's before the knowledge, it's not valuable. Why? Yeah? Because it reinforces the self, the idea of being something you're not. So if it's after, the knowledge can be incredibly valuable. Hey, I heard someone speak and I got a hit. I have an understanding now, and I got a sense that it seems like I'm living life based on the cart being in front of the horse. Oh, far out. That's pretty cool. Now, suddenly, when he's sitting down there and going over that, the self is claiming to have gotten that hit, which is, again, the cart in front of the horse. Now, this is what we need knowledge of, is we need a packet of warnings to reveal to us the common mistakes when the system tries to get out of the system once again. Yeah? When it's heard, the solution, when it heard a novel idea that is obviously not in the system, and it's going to be like a lifeline that I'm going to grab, and by understanding and going to meetings, I'm going to pull myself out of the system, and be free from its fucking defining mechanisms, that's the system trying to get out of the system. Yeah? That's the knowledge that's valuable. The knowledge as a lifeline to the self in the system of self-centeredness is self-knowledge. It doesn't avail the self anything. It's the climbing out, finding themselves back in, climbing out. Yes, it's that slavery of in and out, in and out, in and out. So knowledge of that is incredibly valuable. Yeah? But the knowledge now is it's deposited in a nowhere, no time place, yeah? And that knowledge doesn't have any weight. It doesn't turn into a 900-page book. It's just there as a working, living knowledge. So you see the fundamental futility of trying to get out of me as me. I mean, it seeps to the core. You have such an intimate conviction around it. It's just, you're drenched in it. You're drenched in its acknowledgement. Yeah, you've seen it. You've tried. You know, it maybe they're always going to make up new extreme, just like fashion. We were watching a show last night, based on the '80s. It looks just like the women wearing the high pants up here. They just recycled the fucking thing. But so we're so new and special. We think, oh no, oh look at all those old farts. Hey, when we were your age, we were wearing the same fucking thing, walking around thinking we were special. It's just cycled. Everything is. Yeah. Spirituality is recycled. There's always an extreme version of something. They put a spin on it and they represent it. And then that hope burns eternal. Oh, maybe this time it will work. Yeah, this is the one, this guy or this woman. She's like a better ignition key than I've ever ran into before. I know she can turn on my eternal engine or whatever. Come on, come on, come on. The best she can do is fail you. So that you're left with those devices you're calling yours. You're just assuming it to be true. And then those devices themselves will bring you to that rude awakening. Hey, I can't get out of me as me. My getting out of me is the reinforcement and the constructing of me. Hey, that should fucking chill one out. I mean, it's sort of like dodging raindrops. You finally just stop and you get drenched. And then when the wetness hits you, you realize, hey, I've always been wet. Yeah? The wetness isn't, oh, I've got to capture this. I want to be wet forever. No, it tells you you've always been wet. You were under an assumption that you weren't. Yeah? Simple, seemingly persistent, but it only was that moment with a comet tail of time. Yeah? The bondage of self is from moment to moment, but how it's expressed is historically. Yeah? So you get tied by time. You don't. The mind does, seemingly. None of it can constrict mind, but it's appearing to be able to constrict mind. Yeah? So we are an active part of firm in faith in what we're not is the act of denying what we are. Yeah? It's denial of what you are does not erase what you are. It does not suspend what you are. It does not belittle what you are. It doesn't drain what you are. It doesn't fucking do anything. Yeah? It just produces a sense of seemingly so. So in this moment, it can appear that I'm not that by my being up the ass of what I'm not, really. Yeah? Really. And so you can see that, and there wasn't you in what you are, and then you leaving what you are, and then being you in what you're not. It's not like a shuttle between two space stations, You're not, today earlier I was in what I was. I am. But then I was jettisoned. I don't know. I must have had something to do with it. I was jettisoned into what I'm not. And now I want to, of course, as what I'm not, I want to get back to what I am. But as what I'm not. Yeah? And it's really tasty, and it can really, it's like mental fantasy. man, it would be so great when I'm what I am again, as what I'm not. So there's an attraction, there's a tastiness, there's a desire into becoming what we actually are, yeah? And to the mental state, that surface little agitation, it's much more attractive and desirable to become what it already is. Because it's hoping it will become what it already is as what it's not. It is. It's holding out great hope. It really believes it's going to be there. It hasn't been there. It doesn't, but I believed it was there for certain historical figures. Buddha was really the Buddha, you know. Krishna was Krishna. I'm going for it, yeah. It's unbelievable. It won't. You would think 8,000 revolutions would turn it off. It may not. Yeah, it's gotta, because it's living off of our light source, which is eternal, really. Yeah. So its shenanigans always have the ability to get a reflection because the light's always available at all time. Yeah. And so there's that cave wall, and it'll keep on keeping on. And so it's not about that stopping. If it was, it ain't. It's not about that stopping. It's seeing you're not that. That's the movement is being claimed to imply. Yeah, the movements are occurring. Yeah, the description of a feeling of being disconnected or connected is occurring. But does it make it so? That's not occurring. Yeah. And if you could be weaned off it, which you can't wean yourself off it. See, this is the fundamental thing. You may realize that, but then you want to become super slick and thinking you can lose interest in the interest you have about losing interest. Yeah. It doesn't work, I find. Yeah. I mean, I just talked to a guy who I care about. The mind got a little bit out there, and he was doing. He wasn't. The mind was doing the gymnastics we tried to describe. It was using non-duality, yeah, to try to get out of a dualistic experience, yeah, like a a secret magic thing, and he found out that the futility of that, yeah, it just made it so much worse. Exactly. Or when people call me and really all they want to do is express that they're sad that someone they love has left them, they go through these gymnastics. Well, there wasn't anyone to leave me, and I didn't, it's you're trying to get out of just a feeling or a sense, yeah, and it doesn't work that way. That's why when I used to see this guy, when I went to see this guy Ramesh Balsakov, I'd never seen anyone like, never. That was the first time. No, the second time I went to India. So I sat there, and he'd have some guy that knew him downstairs before people went up to his room. Yeah, so people would wait outside till 9:30, and then you'd go up, maybe 10 people or something. And this guy would come down and ask, "Is anybody new for this?" Because it seemed like Ramesh was tired of talking to the same people. He needed new flesh to get interested. So they'd pick you, and then when you sat there, he would always start with, "Hey, do you have a place to stay? Is everything somewhat okay? Because if it isn't, tend to that shit. Yeah, don't come here." Yeah, because the head is definitely going to be hearing non-duality as a skillful means. It is. And not for what you are, because what you are doesn't need a skillful means. Yeah, but to what you're not. And so when there's an overriding problem in your seeming world, it's like render unto Caesar's what Caesar's. You can't go to the court of non-duality and hope to get some fucking relief for you. It doesn't work in a way that way, yeah? So you have to see, all right, and to deny the need of the action figure that gets some food or some money is freaking ridiculous, It's like another mutated torture event. Just like how in spiritual circles, the word enlightenment, the way it's used by what we're not, causes more pain and suffering. And the word awakening has really become a fucking agitated condition in this life by going to these talks. Yeah, so you got to see, it's the same thing like knowledge. If self is after it, it's valuable. If it's before, the same thing. Non-duality isn't for the action figure. Non-duality is a negation of the action figure, not a denial. A denial of the action figure by the action figure using the terminology of non-duality does not work. It's a negation through observation, yeah, through reflection, through a sudden whack, whatever it seems to coincide with it. It can have thousands of bed partners, you know. It could be just a boring day or a great day. It doesn't matter. But the fact is, it's always negating what you're not. Not in like a fucking armament, fucking gladiator warrior thing, just as a matter of factness. It's just basically saying not to, and if you see you or a you, you'll see what it's made of. And it's not made of one no thing essence. It's made of two-ness. It lives by comparison. It lives by, just like when you were a kid, I used to see if the clouds were moving, I would compare them to a solid thing like a tree. So that's how I could tell they were moving. Yeah, this is how the action figure, the programming of the mental state is based on. Yeah, it's a dualistic programming based on subject-objectness. Fundamentally, it's two-ness. Yeah, fundamentally, and that two-ness can't make itself small enough to get into oneness. It can't. Just like the rich person, not meaning money, but can't. It's a camel has more is going to get into the kingdom of heaven more than that. And the rich person, the richness of being the seer, the feeler, the thinker, the doer, the haver, the loser, that richness isn't going to get into non-duality because you're not out of it, first of all. Yeah? You're wanting a seemingly so to arrive at what's so. What happens is you are already arriving constantly at all times in what's so, and it's negating the seemingly so that wants to arrive there. Yet we think we forget and we start over again. And then it keeps, and now, all right, I'm waiting for that experience, and maybe you get a free sample. The free sample tells you, hey, it's always like this. You go, oh, and then suddenly what you're not goes, I want it to be always like this, based on that it's never like this. So it wants to make it stabilized in the agitating dreamscape when it's the complete context of everything. It doesn't need any more stabilizing. It's like when I used to want to have praying mantis. You put them in a little aquarium, they're dead usually quickly. It's just best to observe praying mantis in their own little environment. Yeah? Yeah. Trying to bring it into my environment, it didn't work well.
Doesn't go well.
So what I was going to do, we already did in a certain way. I like this thing I read today, though. I know people don't like the course. Well, I mean, it's too thick stuff for some people. But I had this thing. Turn to this paper. I'm going to read this, just to read it. It's pretty cool. Maybe you'll get the drift of it. You'll get the drift of it in whatever way you're going to get the drift of it. Mm-hmm. I had a nice feeling of it, yeah. It was like sitting near a nice patch of river this morning. So it goes, your task is not to make reality. That's pretty good. It is here without your making, but not without you. Exactly. Because why? What? Just simple here. Just this one sentence. Your task is not to make reality. What we're doing is making a reality. Yeah. We're not creating anything. We're making a reality in the context of reality. We're dreaming. Yeah? We're dreaming. It is here without your making, but not without you. So I guess your reality. I mean, reality is here, but not without you. Well, I guess your reality then. So if every time Paul came, everyone in the room said, "Hello, Steve," I must be Steve. I thought I was Paul, but I'm Steve. So your task is not to make reality. It is here without your making, but not without you. All right, and don't get caught up with the God thing. It could be whatever. You who have tried to throw yourself away and valued God so little, hear me speak for him and for yourself. Yeah, you cannot understand how much your Father loves you, for there is no parallel in your experience of the world to help you understand it. Yeah, unconditional. That's very off anyway. Yeah? There is nothing on earth with which it can compare, and nothing you have ever felt apart from him. And nothing you have ever felt apart from him resembles it ever so faintly. You cannot even give a blessing in perfect gentleness. Would you know of one who gives forever and who knows of nothing except giving? The children of heaven live in the light of the blessing of their Father because they know that they are sinless. So the atonement isn't about forgiveness. The atonement is nothing ever really happened. Yeah. So there's nothing that was unforgivable that needs to be forgiven because nothing ever happened. In fact, dreaming is happening, yes? Yet nothing ever happened. So it feels like yesterday. Yesterday seemed to happen, but really, in the sense of it now, is nothing ever happened. Like, you don't have to say, let's just say Friday never happened. Yeah. Yet, there seemed to have been a Friday, but Friday never happened. Yeah. The atonement was established as a means of restoring guiltlessness to minds that have denied it. Yeah. And thus denied heaven to themselves. This is the mechanism that selfing uses, yeah? It assumes it has separated from something unbelievably cool, and it's unbearable to it, yeah? It's unbearable to it, but it can't see it any other way, because for it to feel separate, it has to believe it's left that space, which is not true. Yeah? So it makes a lot of shit up, which is the dreaming, to deny that which can't be dreamt. And the dreaming can't cover up what's true. Yeah? It's just an appearance. It's a seemingly so. Yeah? At any second, it's totally seen through. Yet it will seem as if it's been real for 80 years. But at any second, it's easily seen through, like right now. Yeah. You can hear the water, whatever. There's so many exit doors. Yeah. So it as the means of restoring guiltlessness to minds that have denied it, and thus denied heaven to themselves. Atonement teaches you the true condition of the Son of God. It does not teach you what you are or what your Father is. Of course. The greatest teachings are about what you're not. Yeah? Being what you are, it's actually a huge disservice to try to learn about it. Because it doesn't reinforce, knowledge of what you are doesn't reinforce what you are. It needs no reinforcement. Knowledge about with what you are being claimed by what you're not reinforces what you're not. Yeah. To be you, which is a constant state, there's no need for knowledge or understanding. The understanding and knowledge is about what we're not. Yeah. So that we can see what we're making from what's never been made. Yeah. So that free sample that it's always been this way is just clearly obvious. Yeah. So it's not a negation or a denial. It's a negation way. It's not a denial that things are happening. It's a denial that anything ever happened. Because all there is that which is always happening or never happened. Yes? So did the fish actually ever get wet in the ocean? It's been wet the whole time. Yeah? So there's the experiencing of getting wet, but did it ever actually get wet? No. It's always been wet. Yeah. It's just a different way. The mental logic, you'll hear it clunk and clink. It doesn't get it. That's the great news. That's why it's a gateless gate. It's like the open secret. It's not in like an incredible encrypting that you have to spend years of study to break it down, or hieroglyphics or whatever, that you need to find the symbol that's said quite a lot. There's no need for knowledge. Yeah? Unless there is, and it's very temporary and finite. The need isn't an incessant need. The need to know what you're not may be needed in the dreaming, but it will be finite, and the requirement will get easier and easier. Yeah. There'll be less demand when more is revealed. It's not like for more to be revealed, there's got to be more. No, it's less. Yeah. And then you're in the store just because you're there of nothing, and you're perfectly suited to buy what's offered, which is no wanting. Yeah. So now you're readily available to realize you are the message. Yeah. And that message, there is no need to apply a solution because there is no problem. Yeah? Yeah. And so when you have a problem out here, you rush to apply a solution. There's no cognitive dissonance because this is in the making of things, and this is in no-thingness. Yeah? In no-thingness, there's nothing to do. In the thingness, there's things to do. I don't see the big confusion around it, yeah? I mean, you can see, when in Rome, you'll see Rome. So you do as the Romans do. When in Rome, you're not of Rome. As Jesus supposedly says, hey, you're in this world, yeah? But you're not of this world. Far out, yeah? He's not saying, there is no world at all. No, you're in this world, seemingly, but you're not of this world. Yeah. So try that which is unworldly. Why do you want to use it to apply to a worldly situation? Just let it be the overall atmospheric context. Yeah. And maybe you'll see that the solution was only necessary until you saw the problem. And when you see the problem, it's not a problem. Therefore, no need for a solution. Yeah. Which was the inherent state. The inherent state is of no need for a solution. It was a little time-space gymnastics to arrive at where you already are. I'm looking for all my lozenges for the me that I'm not. Should I negate the lozenges? What, are you crazy? They make my throat feel better. It's not your throat. Well,
I think A Course in Miracles says that the only so-called problem is level confusion. It refers
Yeah,
to it as
level
level
confusion.
confusion, right?
Yes. Well, that's the thing. Level confusion really erupts when you hear the messages, because you're wanting to take the message of there is no house and there is no fire to a burning house when you're in it. Yeah, that's why it's not working, and that people get frustrated, and therefore they'll go to the Zoom talk at 1:30. Because we'll have to answer questions, and then you get right into the mix of how to apply this to this.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the questioner, after getting frustrated by all the answers, who was hoping was going to do the trick, will realize it's the answer. Yeah, that's why. To give an answer, try to build an answer on the answer doesn't work. It doesn't. To build a solution on a problem may, yeah, but in this case, there is no problem. That's the situation. That's the little trick, yeah? Because we can't get around it. This isn't about us. It's about there isn't an us. It's about being something inherently so at all times, no matter what's going on in the dreaming, yeah? Very few things are at the core of it. They're not negating the assumption that there's a you. Yeah. Therefore, their mechanism and their direction is always set. They're going to try to do themselves out of the be the doer, or they're going to try to no-think themselves as being the thinker, and they're going to try to feel great all the time, you know, like 24-hour bliss or ecstatic joy and stuff like that. And even that will prove empty over time. It will.
Microdosing.
Yeah, now it's microdosing. Yeah. I just want to have a modicum of joy. Maybe I was shooting too high.
Yeah.
Let's just have a little joy all day. They'll fail. They'll fail like everything. Why? Because it's the laboratory assistant, the laboratory scientist, the lab animal. It's all what you're not.
Same system reconfigured.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's that, eh?
Beautiful.
Get a good shot of this, though. I send this out to my love. I got a 120 cartridge holding thing. So I have sarcasm. Sarcasm is in a giant magazine, ready. Well, wait till we get alone in our self-isolation.
Oh, I'll cut it off there.